I came home from a weekend camping trip in the Adirondacks to find half my firewood stack missing from my backyard. And I knew exactly who had taken it because my security camera doesn't lie. My name is Ethan Carson, and I had been living in the Riverside Meadows subdivision in Rochester, New York, for about 3 years. The neighborhood was nice enough, with well-maintained homes and mature trees lining the streets, but it came with the special kind of hell that only a power-hungry HOA president could create. That president was Patricia Whitmore, a 52-year-old woman with the signature haircut and attitude that made her the living embodiment of every HOA nightmare story you'd ever heard online. I'd spent the entire previous autumn splitting and stacking cord after cord of oak and maple that I'd sourced from a local tree service. They'd delivered 6 cords total, which I'd paid nearly $1,800 for, and I'd spent weekends working that wood into perfectly split pieces, stacking them in neat rows along the back fence of my property. The work had left my hands calloused and my back sore, but I'd looked forward to those cold Rochester winters where I could fire up my wood stove and keep my heating bills low while enjoying the crackle of real wood burning. When I pulled into my driveway that Sunday afternoon in early October, I was tired from the drive and looking forward to unpacking my camping gear. The weather had been perfect up in the mountains, and I'd spent 2 nights completely off the grid with my buddy Marcus, fishing and hiking and generally decompressing from work stress. I worked as an electrical engineer for a manufacturing company downtown, and the job could be demanding, so these trips were essential for my mental health. I grabbed my backpack from the trunk and headed around to the backyard to check on things. That's when I stopped dead in my tracks. The firewood stack that had run along my entire back fence, about 40 feet long and 4 feet high, was now reduced to maybe half its original size. I stood there staring, trying to process what I was seeing. At first, I thought maybe I was remembering wrong, that perhaps I hadn't stacked as much as I thought. But no, the outline in the grass was clear. Where the wood had been, the grass was yellowed and matted down. Where it was missing, the grass was starting to green up again from recent rain. My heart started pounding as anger flooded through me. Someone had stolen my firewood. Not just a few logs for a campfire, but probably 2 full cords worth at least $600 and countless hours of labor. I immediately went inside and pulled up my security camera app on my phone. I'd installed a Ring camera system the previous year after some packages went missing in the neighborhood, and I had one camera pointed at the backyard. I scrolled back through the footage to Saturday morning, the day after I'd left for my trip. There she was, clear as day. Patricia Whitmore, wearing her typical outfit of pressed khakis and a polo shirt, walking into my backyard at 7 in the morning. The footage showed her looking around, probably checking to see if anyone was watching before she pulled out her phone and made a call. About 20 minutes later, a pickup truck pulled into the alley behind my house. 2 young guys, probably in their early 20s, got out and started loading my firewood into the truck bed. Patricia stood there directing them like a foreman, pointing at which sections to take. They made 3 trips total, hauling away load after load of wood that I'd worked so hard to prepare. I saved the footage to my phone and computer, making multiple backups. My hands were shaking with rage. Patricia had been a thorn in my side since I'd moved in, constantly sending me violation notices for the most ridiculous things. She'd cited me for leaving my garbage cans visible from the street 15 minutes past the pickup time. She'd sent me a formal letter because my grass was supposedly a 1/4 inch taller than the HOA covenant allowed. She'd even tried to fine me $200 because the mulch in my flower beds was the wrong shade of brown according to her interpretation of the neighborhood guidelines. But this was different. This wasn't some petty HOA power trip. This was actual theft, a real crime that I could prove with video evidence. I took a few minutes to calm down and think rationally. I could have stormed over to her house right then, but I knew that wouldn't solve anything. Patricia was the type of person who would twist any confrontation to make herself the victim. Instead, I picked up my phone and called the Rochester Police Department non-emergency line. The dispatcher who answered was professional and patient as I explained the situation. She told me she'd send an officer over to take a report and that someone should arrive within the hour. I thanked her and then spent the time waiting by documenting everything. I took photos of the remaining firewood, photos of the clear line where the stacks had been reduced, and I made sure all my video footage was properly saved and easily accessible. Officer David Gonzalez arrived about 45 minutes later. He was a middle-aged cop with a tired but friendly face, the kind of guy who'd probably seen everything in his years on the force. I met him at the front door and walked him through everything, showing him the backyard first so he could see the physical evidence. "That's a lot of wood to steal," he said, looking at the depleted stacks. "This must have taken them a while." "3 truckloads according to my security footage," I said, pulling out my phone. "I have the whole thing on video." His eyebrows went up at that. "Well, that makes this a lot easier." "Let's see it." We went inside and I pulled up the footage on my laptop so he could see it on a bigger screen. I watched his expression as he viewed Patricia directing the theft of my property. He asked me to replay it twice, and he took notes in a small notebook he'd pulled from his uniform pocket. "Do you know this woman?" he asked. "That's Patricia Whitmore. She's the president of our HOA and lives 4 houses down on Meadowbrook Lane," I said. "We've had issues before, mostly her sending me frivolous violation notices, but nothing like this." "And you're certain this is your property she's taking?" "Absolutely certain. I can show you the receipts for the wood delivery, and I have before photos of the full stacks from when I finished organizing everything last month." Officer Gonzalez nodded slowly. "This is pretty cut and dried. We're looking at grand larceny here. In New York, theft of property valued over $1,000 is a felony. How much would you estimate was taken?" I'd already done the math in my head. "About 2 cords of premium hardwood, which I paid $300 per cord for. Plus probably 40 hours of my time splitting and stacking, but I know you can't really charge for that. So at least $600 in raw materials, probably closer to $700 or $800 considering current market prices. Even at $600, this is still criminal theft. I'm going to go have a conversation with Miss Whitmore. Would you like to come along or would you prefer to wait here?" I thought about it. Part of me wanted to see Patricia's face when the cop confronted her, but I also knew that my presence might complicate things. "I'll wait here." "But I want to press charges." "Understood. I'll be back shortly." Officer Gonzalez left, and I watched through my front window as his patrol car drove down the street toward Patricia's house. I couldn't see her house from mine due to the curve of the road, so I had to content myself with waiting and wondering what was happening. I paced around my living room, still feeling the adrenaline coursing through my system. How could someone be so brazen? To just walk onto someone else's property and steal hundreds of dollars worth of goods in broad daylight. It was insane. My phone buzzed with a text from Marcus asking if I'd made it home safely. I replied with a quick summary of what I'd come home to and what was happening now. He responded with a string of angry emojis and told me to keep him updated. About 30 minutes later, Officer Gonzalez returned. I met him at the door again. "Well, that was interesting," he said, and there was something in his tone that suggested he was understating things. "Miss Whitmore initially denied taking anything from your property. When I told her I'd seen video footage, she changed her story. She claims that you violated HOA covenants by storing firewood in your backyard without proper approval, and that she had it removed as part of her authority as HOA president." I felt my jaw drop. She admitted she took it. She claims she had it removed, yes. She says it's being stored at a facility and that you can have it back once you submit proper paperwork for approval of wood storage and pay the associated fines. That's insane. She can't just steal my property because of HOA rules. Even if I was violating something, which I'm not, she doesn't have the legal authority to come onto my property and take things. I explained that to her, Officer Gonzalez said with a slight smile. She didn't take it well. She threatened to call my supervisor and file a complaint about harassment. But the law is clear here. HOA authority does not extend to self-help remedies like confiscating property. If she believed you were in violation, her recourse was to fine you through proper channels and potentially place a lien on your property if you didn't pay. She cannot take your possessions. So what happens now? I've given her two options. 1. She returns all of the firewood to your property within 24 hours, and you can decide whether or not to press charges. 2. She refuses, and I file a report for grand larceny theft, and we go through the formal criminal process. I've also explained that even if you were in violation of HOA rules, which would be a civil matter, it doesn't give her the right to commit a crime. What did she say? She asked for the 24 hours to return the wood. But here's the thing, Mr. Carson. She's going to try to make your life difficult after this. HOA presidents with this kind of attitude usually don't take kindly to being challenged, especially by law enforcement. You might want to document everything going forward and consider attending HOA meetings to protect yourself. I appreciate the warning, but I'm not going to let her bully me. If she wants to play games, I can play too. Officer Gonzalez gave me his card and the case number for the report he was filing. Call me if she doesn't return the wood or if she retaliates in any way. What she did today was illegal, and if she escalates, there will be consequences.